What if the most powerful healing in your entire life had nothing to do with the person who hurt you? What if the apology you have been waiting for, weeks, months, maybe years, is never coming? And what if that is actually the greatest gift the universe is forcing upon you? What if healing was never locked inside their mouth, waiting for them to finally say sorry? What if the key to your freedom, your joy, your wholeness was sitting inside your chest this entire time and you just didn't know how to reach it? Because here is what I have learned from thousands of people who have sat in the wreckage of betrayal, abandonment, and silence. The ones who healed the deepest, who rose the highest, who loved again the most completely. They stopped waiting. They stopped begging for closure from people who weren't capable of giving it. They walked straight into the fire of their own pain, felt every single burning second of it, and they came out the other side not just surviving, but fundamentally, beautifully, unrecognizably free. Stay with me, because what I am about to share will change not just how you heal, but how you see yourself, your pain, and your extraordinary power forever. I want you to sit with that question for a moment, really sit with it. Because I have spent years studying human connection, shame, vulnerability, and the devastating courage it takes to heal. And the single most painful pattern I have witnessed in research and in real life is this brilliant, worthy, deeply loving people handing over the keys to their own freedom to someone who never deserved to hold them in the first place. Let me tell you something that might feel uncomfortable at first. The data is clear, the stories are consistent, the pattern is undeniable. Most of the time, not sometimes, not occasionally, but most of the time, the person who hurt you the most will never look you in the eyes and say, "I was wrong, I am sorry, you deserved better." And if you are building your healing on the foundation of waiting for that moment, you are building on sand. You are constructing your entire emotional recovery on the conscience of someone who has already demonstrated they are unwilling to use it. That is not pessimism. That is the most liberating truth I know how to tell you. Here is what the research shows us about human beings and accountability. People apologize when they feel safe enough to be vulnerable, when they have done the internal work of confronting their own shame, and when they care more about your healing than their own self-protection. When someone hurts you and goes silent, when they minimize, when they deflect, when they disappear, they are not choosing you over their discomfort. And you cannot wait for someone to choose you when they have already shown you their choice. Now I need to talk about something that lives at the very center of this conversation, something that shapes everything, and that is the radical, world-altering difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. Because we have confused these two things so completely that millions of people believe they must stay connected to their pain in order to stay morally good. We think if we forgive, we are saying what happened was acceptable. We think if we let go, we are somehow betraying ourselves or excusing the person who wounded us. That is not forgiveness. That is a misunderstanding that has stolen years of healing from people who deserve to be free. Forgiveness, real forgiveness, the kind that actually works, the kind that transforms your body and your nervous system and your capacity for joy, is not about them at all. It is not a gift you give to the person who hurt you. It is medicine you give yourself. It is the moment you decide that their actions will no longer write the story of your future. Reconciliation asks, can we repair this relationship? Forgiveness asks only one question, can I release this poison from my body? And the beautiful, devastating answer is yes, you can. Without their participation, without their apology, without their awareness that you have even done it. But here is where it gets harder, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. Because the path to forgiveness runs directly through vulnerability, and vulnerability is the most terrifying territory most of us will ever enter. We have been taught by culture, by family systems, by survival instinct, that we must armor up when we are in pain, that to show hurt is to show weakness. That to admit we are shattered is to hand more power to the person who shattered us. But I have sat with thousands of people's stories. I have read the research, I have lived this personally. And I can tell you with absolute certainty, the armor doesn't protect you. The armor traps you. Every wall you build to keep the pain out simultaneously keeps the healing out. Every mask you wear to show the world you are fine keeps you from feeling the one thing that will actually set you free, your own honest, raw human grief. Grief is not weakness. Grief is the price of love, and it deserves to be honored. When you lose something, a relationship, a trust, a version of yourself you thought was permanent, you are supposed to feel that loss completely, not perform it, not wallow in it indefinitely, but feel it fully, name it honestly, and sit with it long enough that it transforms rather than calcify. The people who never allow themselves to grieve don't actually escape the pain. They just carry it differently, as chronic anger, as numbness, as a persistent inability to trust, as a body that holds what the mind refuses to process. The grief comes out, It always comes out. The only question is whether you choose when and how, or whether it chooses for you. Now let us talk about shame, because shame is the silent architect of so much of our stuckness. When someone wrongs us without acknowledgement, our brains do something deeply human and deeply cruel. They turn inward. They start asking, what is wrong with me? Why wasn't I worth an apology? Why didn't I matter enough for accountability? And these questions feel like self-reflection, but they are actually shame wearing the costume of introspection. Shame tells you the problem is you, that you are fundamentally, permanently, irreparably flawed in some way that explains why this happened. And shame keeps you anchored to the past because as long as you believe the problem is your unworthiness, you cannot move toward worthiness. You stay frozen in the question of why wasn't I enough? Instead of living into the truth of I have always been enough. Here is what I know about shame. It cannot survive being spoken. The moment you take shame out of the dark, airless room where it thrives and hold it up in honest light with someone who has earned the right to hear your story, it begins to lose its power. This is why connection is the opposite of shame. This is why telling the truth about your pain to one trusted person is not weakness. It is the bravest act of self-rescue available to you. But then there is blame. And blame is shame's equally destructive twin. Some of us, when we are in pain, don't turn the shame inward. We direct it outward at the person who hurt us. We replay the betrayal. We rehearse the argument we never got to have. We spend mental energy imagining their consequences, their regrets, their eventual understanding of what they lost. And while this feels like justice, while this feels like power, while this feels like we are doing something with the pain, it is actually another form of imprisonment. Because every moment you spend in the story of what they did, you are absent from the story of who you are becoming. Accountability matters. It is deeply human to want people who cause harm to be held responsible. But there is a critical difference between seeking accountability through appropriate channels and outsourcing your emotional state to someone who has already proven they will not honor it. You can acknowledge the wrong without making your peace contingent on their recognition of it. And this brings me to something I consider absolutely essential: boundaries. Not as punishment, not as walls, not as cruelty dressed up as self-care. Real boundaries, the kind that say, I know my worth and I will structure my life accordingly. The kind that are not announced in anger but are quietly, firmly, lovingly built in your own best interest. We struggle with boundaries because we have been taught that being a good person means being endlessly available, endlessly forgiving in the access-granting sense, endlessly willing to give people one more chance. But endless access is not goodness. Endless access without accountability is self-abandonment. And you cannot pour genuine love into the world from an empty container. You cannot heal others while you are hemorrhaging. Choosing to limit someone's access to your energy, your time, your emotional world, when they have demonstrated they cannot steward those things responsibly, is not cruelty. It is the deepest form of self-respect. It is saying, I matter, my peace matters, my healing matters. Now I want to tell you about the most powerful thing I have encountered in years of this work. More powerful than any therapeutic technique, more transformative than any framework, more consistently life-altering than anything else I have seen in the data or the stories or the lived human experience of people choosing to rise. It is the decision to become the author of your own story. Here is what I mean. The facts of what happened to you are real. The betrayal was real. The silence was real. The pain was real. I am not asking you to deny any of it, minimize any of it, or perform a false peace that bypasses the actual work of healing. But facts and meaning are two different things. The facts are what happened. The meaning is what you decide those facts say about you, about people, about the world, about what is possible for your life going forward. And here's the staggering truth: you are the only person with the authority to determine that meaning. Not the person who hurt you, not the silence they offered instead of an apology, not the version of the story they are telling their friends. You decide what this experience means for who you are becoming. You can tell a story that says, this happened to me and it broke me forever. Or you can tell a story that says, this happened to me, I chose to face it fully, and it revealed a strength I never knew I was carrying. Both stories acknowledge the same fact. Only one of them gives you a future. This is not toxic positivity. This is not pretending the darkness wasn't dark. This is the hardest, most courageous, most revolutionary act a human being can perform, choosing consciously and repeatedly to be the protagonist of your own life rather than the supporting character in someone else's story of your destruction. The people I have seen heal the most completely, and I want you to hear this, they did not heal because the person who hurt them came back and made it right. They did not heal because they finally got the closure they asked for, the conversation they deserved, the acknowledgement that was owed. They healed because they decided on an ordinary day, perhaps in an ordinary moment, that they were worth more than waiting, that their one precious life was too extraordinary to spend in the waiting room of someone else's moral development. That wholeness was available to them right now, built on the foundation of their own courage, their own honesty, their own willingness to feel and grieve and release and rise. They did not forgive because it was easy. They forgave because they were exhausted from carrying what was never theirs to carry permanently. They did not let go because the pain stopped hurting. They let go because they finally understood that holding on was hurting them far more than the original wound ever could. You are allowed to heal from things that haven't been acknowledged. You are allowed to recover from losses that haven't been grieved by anyone else. You are allowed to build a full, magnificent, deeply connected life, even if the person who hurt you never understands the depth of what they did. Your healing is not dependent on their awareness. Your joy is not hostage to their growth. Your wholeness is not conditional on their apology. The door to your freedom is not locked from the outside. It never was. It is locked from the inside, and you have had the key the entire time. The question is simply whether you are ready to use it. And so here's where we land. Not at the end, but at the beginning. Everything we have walked through together today points to one undeniable, unshakable truth. Your healing is yours. It belongs to you entirely, completely, without condition. It does not require permission from the person who caused your pain. It does not require their apology, their understanding, their growth, or their presence. Healing asks only one thing from you: the courage to choose yourself honestly and repeatedly, even when it is hard, even when the grief is heavy, even when letting go feels like losing something you still desperately wanted to keep. You have carried enough, you have waited long enough, you have given enough of your irreplaceable energy to someone who was not investing it back into you. Today, not when they finally come around, not when they finally see what they lost, but today you are allowed to begin again. You are allowed to grieve what you deserved and never received, to honor the pain without being owned by it, to draw boundaries not out of bitterness, but out of breathtaking self-respect, and to write a story about your life that is so true, so full, so achingly beautiful that even the darkest chapters are recognized as necessary steps toward the person you are always becoming. The apology may never come, but your life, your whole free, luminous life, absolutely can.